Okay, so we'll need to start and set a motivation for attending the discussion of the Dharma and practicing. So to start off, just recall the kind of Mahayana motivation we wish to set. We're going to study the Lamrim to have happiness in this life, in future lives, and then maybe the next step up, kind of going for liberation for ourselves, and then finally aiming for liberation of all sentient beings. So kind of pick the motivation which is most suitable for your level, I suppose. So whether at the moment you're ready for Mahayana motivation or you're not quite there yet, it doesn't matter. Just think you're going to attend the pure motivation of Dharma. And I'll share my screen. So we're going to do some sort of brief prayers. And these are kind of similar to what you maybe want to do in a meditation session. So easy enough to follow if you then want to do this in a practice session. So starting visualizing the space in front, you have sort of the Lamrim refuge fields, the most important here. And this is Shakyamuni Buddha in the center, surrounded by the sort of method and lineage. That's why the method and wisdom lineages. So to his right, you have to the right of Buddha. So to the left of the Buddha, as you look at him, to the Buddha's right, you have Maitreya, surrounded by his Sangha and so on, with the method lineage. And to the Buddha's left, to the right, as you look at the visualization, you have a master of the wisdom lineage, so it's Manjushri, surrounded by Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti and so on. And then think above Shakyamuni Buddha's the lineage gurus, and below the Bodhisattvas, starting with the highest yoga tantra yidams you practice, or just if you don't practice yet, the main ones your lineage, the yoga tantra, the chaya tantra, kriya tantra. The below that's kind of dakinis and dharma protectors, and then think sat behind the Buddha is a collection of texts. So you have the three jewels as the Buddha is Shakyamuni Buddha is the Buddha jewel, the Dharma texts behind him are the Dharma jewel, and then the sort of collection of Arya beings, the Buddha lineage gurus, and the Yidams are all the Sangha jewel. So with that in mind, think you're surrounded by countless sentient beings. So to your right, you have your father, and to your left, your mother. Behind you, your friends and deep close ones, and in front, your strangers and enemies, all in human form. And think you're acting like an Omze leading them in prayer. So start with refuge. Sangye chodam sadi chonam chanchu patu dani kapsu chi dagi chonye gebe sonam gi tola penshi sangye rupa sho sangye chodam sadi chonam la chanchu patu dani kapsu chi dagi chonye gebe sonam gi tola penshi sangye rupa sho Sangye chodam soni chodam la chanchu badu dagi kyapsu chi dagi chunye gepe sonangi drola penche sangye drupa sho. Then offer a mandala to the refuge field. Sa shi bo hi yu shi me to tra mi la li ji 你的眼巴里，三夜是路，你的就把手一让 kuat mandala kami tayangi. Okay, so with that, we'll finish kind of more brief introductory prayers than normal today. But that's maybe more appropriate for if you're doing a practice session. You don't have time to recite the prayers to put the Heart Sutra and so on. So the teachings we're going to do are going to be based on the foundation of all good qualities. So this is a relatively short Lama text written by Lama Tsongkhapa. But this text is recommended by His Holiness Dalai Lama for daily practice because unlike some of the other short Lamrims, it covers every topic of the Lamrim. So while you have the three principal aspects of the path is similar length, perhaps slightly shorter, it doesn't actually go into detail, about guru devotion, karma, impermanence, and so on. It has a brief passing mention. So His Holiness recommends this text for sort of daily practice. And maybe in conjunction with the three principal aspects later when we reach the emptiness section, because its explanation there is much clearer. Okay, so we'll follow along the logic of the text. We're going to go through it from start to beginning. And the first verse of the text is the foundation of all good qualities is relying on the guru, correctly relying on him as the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and practicing with great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. Yeah, I'll send a copy around. And yeah, so this verse is really clear. Foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect pure guru. So starting off that everything about the Dharma comes from the guru. We wouldn't be able to practice without them. We'd be totally stuck. And so we're saying that the foundation to our Dharma practice is devotion to the guru, because we need to attend teachings to even begin. And correctly rely upon him to the path. So as we'll kind of cover how we rely correctly on the guru, and you'll be able to see how that is the route to the path. Yeah, so the last two lines are more just an encouragement to practice. We're going to do this. So starting off with the benefits of guru devotion, as much as saying it's found the route to the path. Why is that? So according to the sort of Lamrim Chenmo and the Middle End Lamrim and other great texts, there are 8 main benefits of relying on the guru. So the most important is the first one. You'll come closer to Buddhahood. So by relying on the guru, you'll be practicing the Dharma, so you'll be progressing along the path. 2, you'll please all the Buddhas, because the guru encompasses all the Buddhas. So when the guru is pleased, so if you practice the Dharma well and please the guru that way, the Buddhas are all very pleased. 3, you'll never lack a spiritual teacher in future rebirth. So you create good karmic connections to a guru, and then you have the good karma to meet them again and again. 4, you'll not be reborn in the lower realms, because if you follow the guru's advice, you'll purify all this negative karma we accumulate, which is the cause of these lower rebirths. 5, you'll not be overpowered by inner or outer hindrances. So again, because you're purifying negative karma and you accumulate virtue, you'll have less obstacles. Your mental afflictions and compulsive bad habits will be curtailed by the strength of your guru devotion. So if you can perhaps see this in certain teachers who have a lot of devotion, that kind of improves their practice. It's much easier to practice and subdue your mind if you kind of trust the teacher. 7, you'll achieve all your short and long-term aims. So again, maybe short-term aims of happiness in this life and long-term aims of full enlightenment. Because you're practicing the path, you're going to attain them. And 8, you'll complete the accumulation of merit and wisdom. So because the guru teaches you, you do purification practices, you accumulate merit, you'll accumulate merit and wisdom. If you practice some meditation and so on. So moving on, there's a couple of quotes. So Nagarjuna said, if a person steps off the porch of a house situated on the edge of a cliff, though he may not wish to fall, he must. In the same way, if one practices guru devotion, one will certainly gain spiritual insight. So you're seeing straight away from the start there that these aspects of guru devotion are kind of essential, and that you can't avoid gravity, you can't avoid accumulating virtue from doing positive deeds. And then maybe it's an extreme, and it's less applicable for maybe people who only practice sutra. But in the Guru Samaja Tantra, it says, even if there was one committed all the 10 non-virtuous acts and the 5 heinous crimes, it is still possible to attain enlightenment. But despising one's guru brings an absolute stop to all progress. So you can see if you despise your guru, you just cannot progress along the path because you won't trust anything they've taught you to practice or anything like that. So if you don't do it correctly, what's going to happen? So it says, again in the land room, there's another list of 8. You'll notice as we go through all these teachings, lists are a common feature. So one second. Yeah, so if you don't devote yourself correctly, the first one is disrespect for the master is disrespect to all the Buddhas. So as we see in a little bit, the guru is an emanation of the Buddha, so disrespecting the guru is disrespecting the Buddha. And 2, you remain in hell for as many eons as the number of moments you are angry at the master. By the way, this is quite an extreme example, but it's more to illustrate the effects of anger. Anger is so destructive, so we need to be so careful about it. 3, you will not achieve enlightenment even if you practice Tantra. So, you won't be able to practice properly and you won't make progress. In fact, if you practice Tantra and you despise the guru, it's even more certain you won't attain enlightenment. 4, your practice of Tantra will only result in a hell rebirth. So if you don't practice Tantra, a few of these negative reasons don't apply as much. But this is kind of a consequence of the Vajrayana aspects, so we won't discuss it much here. 5, you'll not develop fresh qualities and those you'll have will generate. So if you despise your guru, you're not going to follow their advice. So if they tell you should do 100,000 Vajrasattva's to purify negativities, and you think, oh, I don't like them, I'm not going to do as they say, I won't do those Vajrasattva mantras, it's too much effort. So then you're not going to purify that negative karma, and you're not going to change the mental habits you've created. Instead, you're just going to feed them, and they're going to develop and grow. So instead of purifying that negative karma, you'll probably just make more. 6, many things you do not wish for in this life will befall you, like illnesses and so on. So again, this is a consequence of our accumulating negative karma. You're going to suffer. 7, in future lives, you'll wander endlessly in the lower realms. So again, you can kind of see here's another one relating to accumulating negative karma. If you have a lot of negative karma, you can't possibly attain a precious human rebirth or even a rebirth. You'll have to be reborn in the lower realms. And then 8, you will not meet with spiritual friends in future lives. So again, you're creating karmic habits against the guru. So in the same way, if you devote yourself properly, you create karmic connections to meet them again and again. If you're negative, you create the opposite. So karmic habits not to meet. So that's kind of the first main point I wanted to cover, sort of why we need to do it, because this is maybe the opposite way round to the Lama text a lot of the teachers discuss. Well, modern teachers less so, but traditionally it's taught on this is what you need to do, and there's less emphasis on the why. And especially for West modern times, it's quite important to understand why we're doing it. So then, secondly, and really it's the most important point. The second is what the qualifications are of a qualified teacher. So the Mahayana Sutra Lamkara, the ornament of Mahayana Sutras, says, a spiritual teacher with discipline, calm, complete peace, more excellent qualities, with effort, rich in scriptures, who has thoroughly realized suchness, is eloquent, loving, and never disheartened. On that one rely. So we can kind of go through these 10, 16 discipline. So they maintain their vows that they hold, whether they're an ordained Sangha and they hold a Vinaya vow, and they keep the root vows of a monk or nun, or whether they're a lay person and just hold the vows that they hold there. You know, whether they hold all 5 vows or they hold 4 or 3, 2, 1, whichever, but they're maintaining them. And then if they hold bodhisattva vows, they're keeping them pure. Right? And then if they have tantric vows, they maintain the tantric samayas too. So calm, sort of free of anger, because anger is such a destructive emotion. If someone's full of anger all the time, they haven't subdued their mind necessarily. So complete peace sort of refers to having some meditative ability. More excellent qualities. So if the teacher doesn't have better qualities than you, how can you progress on the path? You know, if you're not seeing people, if you're not receiving teachings from someone more learned than you or with better practice experience than you can't learn anything new off them. So with effort, so talking about applying right effort to engaging in Dharma practice, doing retreats, making offerings, giving teachings, and so on. Rich in scriptures, so they have received teachings on the texts that they're teaching, or at least the sort of topics. You know, maybe they haven't received the oral transmission of a specific text they're going to teach, but they've received enough teachings that they can understand the text to explain it. And it doesn't mean that they need to be like a Geshe or a Kempo or kind of completed Shedva studies. You'll meet teachers who have just attended many teachings and have an understanding, but they haven't received a formal Dharma education in the same way. Who has thoroughly realized suchness. So it's talking about a realization of emptiness here. So ideally, the teacher would have a direct realization of emptiness. This is hard to come by. So it's not necessarily required, even if it's an inferential or just kind of an intellectual understanding of emptiness. That's kind of the minimum, I suppose, to start at. And more importantly, they know more about emptiness than you do. And is eloquent, so they sort of speak and explain clearly. This one maybe isn't essential, but it's easier to listen to someone who can explain the texts clearly and well. You meet some teachers, especially Tibetans from Kham, who are quite rough, and the way they speak isn't quite as eloquent as someone from Lhasa. It doesn't mean that the Dharma is not as good that they teach, but if someone's well spoken, it's easier to listen to them and understand. That's kind of the point here. They're loving, so you want a teacher, because it's from the Mahayana, the Honor Mahayana Sutras. So you want a teacher who's not teaching just for their own benefit. They're not teaching for money and fame and so on, but they're teaching to benefit beings. And never disheartened. So again, it's Simra's effort. They'll teach and give retreat and go and do teachings no matter who turns up. So some of my own teachers, they'd travel for hours to give a teaching, and then maybe only 3 people would turn up. But they didn't mind because they still benefited 3 people. So it's kind of like that. And then John Tompler, the student of a teacher, says, for someone to be called a Mahayana guru, he must generate boundless understanding when he explains and when he practices. He must show what is of benefit and directly meaningful when the teachings are on the way. So John Tompler here is saying that you should have, of what you teach, you should have an understanding already. And then when you practice the Dharma, you must show what's of benefit. You engage in virtuous deeds and you show that they're good to do. So, yeah, we can kind of see these are really important. So the collection of indicative verses, the Udana, which is it's kind of like the Mahayana version, or the Tibetan canon version of the Dhammapada, says, people relying on someone inferior sink. Those relying on one of their peers say the same. Those who rely on the foremost will achieve excellence. Therefore, you should rely on your superiors, endowed with ethics, complete peace, and even more superior wisdom. If you rely on any such lords, you'll even end up ahead of them. So it's the same as what kind of discussed in the last quote. You can't follow someone who knows less than you because you're not going to actually get anywhere. Same as if the teacher has as much knowledge on a topic as you're still not going to learn anything new. It's maybe not a waste of time, but you're not going to progress. And then sort of a final quote from Lama Tsongkhapa, who in his middle-length Lam says, even if it's difficult due to the times to find someone who has a complete set of characteristics like that, it is said you should rely not on anyone whose faults are greater or whose faults and excellent qualities are equal, but on someone whose excellent qualities exceed the faults. So nowadays, it's very rare to meet an higher being. And even beyond that, we might struggle to meet someone to act as a teacher who has all 10 qualities. They might not have great scriptural understanding, or they might not have a direct realization of emptiness, or speak brilliantly, and they might not have attained samadhi, they might not have complete peace in that way. But as long as their qualities are greater than yours, you'll still be able to benefit of them. So you want to find someone who has as many of those 10 qualifications as possible, even if that's just someone who has pure ethics and an intellectual understanding of emptiness and kind of a slight practice experience of bodhicitta. That's maybe a good starting point, or kind of a limit. You start off looking for the 10, and then at the very minimum, you want them to know more than you, practice virtue, and maintain the vows. So we've kind of covered why we rely on the guru, what guru we should rely on. So I suppose the final point you might be wondering is actually, how do we do it? So in this way, we would now need to think, how can we rely on a guru? And the main way we have two. There's one, faith, and two, respect. So we'll start covering faith. So to generate faith in the guru, you have to cover kind of four main points. And these are very traditional lists. So it's one, Rajadara stated that the guru is a Buddha. So if you trust Rajadara as a Buddha, the Buddha's not going to lie to you. Shakyamuni Buddha didn't lie, so Vajradhara won't. And in many tantras, Vajradhara talks about how the guru is a Buddha who came to benefit you. Two, we don't have the merit to see the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so the emanate forms we can see. So, only Arya beings can receive teachings from the Dharmakaya. So, only full Buddhas can see the Dharmakaya. Only Arya beings can see the Sambhogakaya. So we don't have this realization of emptiness. We can't see the Sambhogakaya to receive teachings from these Buddhas. So they have to emanate a form that we can see. And if you think of the story of Asanga and Maitreya, where Maitreya was with Asanga for all those years in the cave, but Asanga didn't have the karma to see Maitreya. And even when he gave up his practice, and he was walking down the hill and he saw the dog laid in the street with maggots who were growing out of its legs. And he generated compassion and thought, I need to take these maggots out of this dog's wounds, but I can't pull them out without harming the maggots. I don't want to do that. So he used his tongue to clear the maggots out. But as soon as he touched the first maggot with his tongue, the dog transformed to Maitreya because he purified this karma. And he could see Maitreya as it was in the form of Maitreya. So he then sat Maitreya on his shoulders and carried him into the town out of respect. And when he entered the town, everyone thought he was crazy because he was talking about Maitreya. But for most of the village, they couldn't see anything. He was just walking there with nothing. But this old lady in the village saw him with the sick dog on his shoulders. So we can see that the karma, if you don't have any karma to meet a Buddha, you won't see anything. And if you have some to meet the Buddha, you might have some kind of vision, but it might not be of the actual Buddha themselves. So three Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are always working for our benefit. So the Buddhas cannot bestow realizations on us, they can only teach us the Dharma. And who's teaching the Dharma to us all the time? It's the Guru. So, and the final of the four is we cannot eschew appearances. So in the same way of this story of Asanga and Maitreya, just because you see a dog doesn't mean it is a dog. There's just no way of knowing. So in that way, you have to be careful and just treat everyone with respect. So then that's how we generate faith, and then we need to generate respect. So the respect comes in two main ways. Where one is the first is how the Guru showed us great kindness. So once you've kind of got this feeling of devotion to the Guru, you think of their kindness. They teach the Dharma, you think without our great teachers, we just wouldn't be able to practice. We'd be totally lost. Then beyond that, the teaching that's being so important. Then they bestow blessings. And these help us to have realizations and experience in meditation. So without this, we are so totally lost. And the Guru is so kind, showing us these blessings. And then they bestow all transmissions. So you think it's when you reach the path of seeing, you recall all all transmissions you've ever received. So in this way, the guru really kind of helps us make these connections over and over again with the Dharma. And then the guru gives material support, whether it's like answers practice questions and gives advice on practice, gives us money, medicine, food, any kind of support like that, or even just freedom from fear with being there as an emotional, like to care for us. And then the final point that you can kind of think is the guru's here right now. Shakyamuni Buddha's entered Parinirvana. He cannot teach us the Dharma and cannot benefit us. So in this way, the guru is even kinder than Shakyamuni Buddha, because the guru is here right now teaching us the Dharma. So then that's devotion with our mind. With faith and respect, you generate these mental aspects of devotion to the guru. And then you can use all, the three doors: the body, speech, and the mind. So the main ones are the mind. The sort of devote yourself with speech is quite easy. You give praise to the guru. You tell people you should attend teachings from His Holiness because they're life changing. Not just going around bragging that you're amazing because you attend teachings, but being genuine about your teacher. And then finally, devoting yourself with the body is even easier. So this again is divided into three. So you can kind of see guru devotion itself is divided into three. And the final one, how to devote yourself to the guru, is divided into three. The first is divided into two. So the devotion of mind is divided into two, speech into one, and body into three. So the devotion of the body has lesser, middling, and greater. Lesser devotion of the body is offering gifts. You give a donation to school, dana at the end of a teaching, or so on, or offerings in that way. And then the middling method is offering service. Whether you act as an attendant or you help in the Dharma center, those kind of things for them. And the greatest method of devotion with the body is obtaining the guru's advice and putting it into practice. So attending teachings, developing an understanding of the Dharma, and then applying these in meditation. And this is the most important because this is what the gurus want. They want us to attain enlightenment, and they know that to do so we need to practice the Dharma. So this greatly pleases them when we practice devotion in such a way. So you can kind of see there how we practice guru devotion, why we practice guru devotion. And yeah, it's so fundamental to our practice. Yeah, just think about all my great teachers and how we're completely lost in samsara without them. Okay, so the Zoom meeting will end in 4 minutes. So perhaps next time we can do a brief instruction on how to do a Lama meditation. And for now, we'll just dedicate the merit of this discussion of the Dharma we've had. In fact, so you can see in this document I'll share this just copy. It starts off with your introductory prayers, the foundation of all good qualities, and then some brief notes on maybe what you'd like to do in terms of practice methods, and finally the dedication verses. So the dedicate, thinking of the 3 rounds here that the emptiness, the act of dedication, the merit of dedicating, the aim we are dedicating towards empty and existence, sits in the nature of cause and effect and will come true. 자기 신에서 배가와 디 텐단도와 나페다 키파 제소 로선 파파 이 tempening pouring to show the long life of all our gurus because they're so important. Càng vi và we in comes for pendandowa malu shomwe ni chenwe zi wang tenzi katsu yi shape si te padu chengyu chi. And then sort of three principal aspects of renunciation, bodhicitta and emptiness. Nation Champa Rinpoche, Make Panam, Kekyu Chi, Yepa Nyampa Mepa Ya, Gong Ye Gong Du Pelva Sho. Changchu Semjo Rinpoche, Make Panam, Kekyu Chi, Yepa Nyampa Mepa Ya, Gong Ye Gong Du Pelva Sho. Tongi Tawa Rinpoche, Make Panam, Kekyu Chi, Yepa Nyampa Mepa Ya, Gong Ye Gong Du Pelva Sho. As long as space remains, as long as my greatest remain, till there may too remain to dispel the suffering of my great. In all my lives, in every separation from perfect gurus, I enjoy the magnificent Dharma, while completing the qualities and stages of the past, may quickly attain the state of Vajradharma.